Welcome to Season 3 of In the Vine podcast with your host, Melissa Chavez, joined by Yesenia, Denise, and Shekinah. This season, we'll be discussing the joy of the Lord and, of course, our monthly and other upcoming events. To find out more, please visit www.inthevine.org. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to show your support and like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of In the Vine podcast with your host, Melissa Chavez. And with me today, I have
Denise,
Shekinah,
and
Kat.
just one syllable. So you guys may have seen a recent post that we did for her birthday. Kat is always behind the scenes, and she is amazing. She's the one that did our new intros for this season. I think you also did the ones before, huh? Like the second one, yeah. So, hello, Kat. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thank you. It is a joy to have you here. Unfortunately, Yessie is feeling under the weather, so we're going to have Kat here for these next two episodes. Yessie was actually like, you guys should have Kat on the show. And so I was like, yes, let's do it. So
Thank you, Yessie. I appreciate you.
So hopefully,
We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so jumping right into it. Recently, I asked you guys a few questions on our Instagram just to keep it a little bit, engaging with you guys. And you guys really wanted to know the tea. I'm really surprised at how many of you just wanted to know. And so today we're going to give you the tea about our lives. So I'm going to start with you because unfortunately, you don't have your partner here to talk about the marriage secrets, right? So you're going to have to take it for the team.
No pressure. You got this.
Okay, so here is the question: how do you keep romance alive in your marriage?
How? I think you start off by being very purposeful and intentional with that. Because if it's not in the forefront, it's easy for it to slip away, from the mind. So one thing, I can't speak for everybody, but one thing my husband and I purposely do every week is date night. We do date night, and date night looks different. Just whatever we're, up in the mood for, whatever that week allows, but however long we have our babysitter for, but definitely weekly date nights. And we definitely like to travel. So, there's at least once a year we'll go away. Now that my kids are older, obviously, time and place, right? Seasons. Now that my kids are no longer nursing and can stay a night away from me, we like to go out. We went to Big Bear, I think it was last year, just him and I. And that just really keeps it, just sparks it up. And, there's other little things that we do here and there. I text him, I love you, I miss you. Just little things that lets him know that I'm thinking about him.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
When you guys go on date nights, do you take turns choosing, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's times we normally do. We're both foodies. So we know for a fact we're going to go eat somewhere good. Yeah. And normally I'll choose, or he'll choose depending, but he's usually like, whatever you want. But if he really wants something, he'll make it known. He'll be like, okay, I really want this today, and we'll do that. But yeah, we definitely try to take turns.
Okay, best place that you've gone to eat out here in the AV?
Out here in the AV.
I'll make it easy for you just this month. That way you can narrow it down a little bit.
Oh my gosh, this month. This month, I would say Complexity Wine.
I've heard about that place. I heard it's really good.
Yes. I asked my husband, that's one of the places Mike loves going to because he loves a dessert there. He's not much of a sweet tooth, but he loves their crumble cheesecake, apple pie.
Got it.
Bomb.
Got it. So for all you listeners that either want to go on a date with your mans or are thinking of taking somebody out on a first date or something like that, Complexity Wine. You're welcome.
We should ask for a paid sponsorship.
We should. We actually should. I'm gonna delete that off of this podcast.
Their endless seafood pasta, bomb.
Really?
Yes.
Seafood pasta. Good to know. You should do like a food blog.
I know.
It'd be good. Okay, so next I'm gonna ask the single ladies. I'm gonna ask, are you currently dating?
We really just brought my niece on here to set her up.
Just kidding.
No, you're not kidding.
It just worked out. Who wants to go first?
We all just gave you a hard
Yeah.
stare. You have to go first, Kat.
Who wants to?
Can I pass this one?
Just no.
Welcome to In the Vine.
Unscripted.
Question: Are you dating? Yeah.
Stop. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Would you like to divulge any?
Yeah, very sweet guy. Treats you very nice. Meeting each other's families, going out and getting to know each other more and more every day. And then lately we've been more intentional with knowing the other person rather than enjoying the other person, if that makes sense. Because one thing that we both set up from the beginning was we don't want to do this just to do this. We want to like be intentional with what we're doing.
So tell me, did In the Vine help you with that?
Being in the back and hearing all the raw footage as well, yes.
Good answer. Look at that. If you too would like to catch a man, contact us at 661. However, now we're coming to Chicana. Okay, no, I just want to say that the person that she's talking about, he is really sweet. He's awesome, and he's so far he's passed the vibe check.
Oh, for sure. You can keep up their sarcasm. So,
Yeah.
He can. And he can help quote all the SpongeBob references
See,
as
that's
well.
right there.
He's been added to the group chat. That's how well it's
Right,
going.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, and the first time this dude came to church, my hat goes
It's,
off to him if I had one. So,
Crazy story.
ladies, if he wanted to, he would. Okay, Shekinah, hello.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Your bangs are looking really good. Your
Oh,
makeup's
thanks.
fire.
Thank you,
Wow.
thank you.
Okay, and that color obviously looks really good.
It
on you,
does.
yes.
This color. I love it. My whole closet is this color.
Yeah, it really vibes. Vibe is the word for me today.
It is. Okay, girl. You vibing.
So tell us, are you currently dating?
I am not.
I wish I had like a sound effect machine to be like, oh.
Oh, no, by choice.
Yeah.
It's funny. Actually, today I got a ton of camping gear. What would normally, I'd save up money for a plane trip every year, and I go somewhere in the world. But this year, it all went towards camping gear because I thought I'm going to invest in a trip that, in supplies that will get me to multiple trips. So
Yeah.
I definitely haven't set myself up to be in a dating relationship for a little while, and so I'm going to take advantage of this time of singleness and just kind of adventure in my backyard, so to speak.
Literally.
Love it.
Shekinah lives in a place that is literally like camping all the time. Like you can literally Airbnb her house and you would be out in the woods.
I love it.
Yeah.
Didn't think I would, but I do.
Yeah, it's really good.
I enjoyed camping there last year with the kids.
Oh yeah, our camp clique, our children's church leaders live there as well, and they always bring the kids up there for camping trips and retreats. It's
Yeah.
so cute. It's fun.
Their house is literally like a little cabin. It is, right?
Yeah,
it is a
Yeah,
it is a cabin. Yeah.
So for me, no, I'm not dating. No.
By choice.
by choice. So I haven't told you guys, but I actually tried putting myself out there again. And I was like, I couldn't stomach it. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't, I was not in the mood for it. I was like, no, the next time. That's why I posted that one post where it's like the next guy has to have like 3 essays. Like,
references.
because the Lord is still settling some stuff in my heart. So we're just taking the time to heal, right?
Yeah.
Because that's important.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you guys the dating question. And that is, do similar interests matter when you're dating?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they're a good thing to have, but I don't think they're super important that you have to match with somebody perfect, like line by line on everything, because you also don't want to date the same person as you. That's what
Right.
I've learned.
Yeah.
And it's cool to, like, something I've noticed with the guy that I'm dating right now is that we get to teach each other about our own little worlds. Per se, like, oh, I'm really passionate about videography, about photography and everything like that. He has no idea what any of that is. So I'm like, oh, when I'm editing stuff, when I was doing stuff for the podcast, he gets to sit with me and watch me how I do it, and I get to nerd out to him.
Yeah.
And he likes cars and stuff, so I'm like,
And
cool.
anime.
You get to
That's the only thing I'm like,
he likes cars and stuff. So 1, he gets to teach me. 2, he gets to fix and wash my car.
Hallelujah. Okay, that's really good insight.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. Good answer.
We might keep you for the next one.
No, I would have to agree. Depends. I think similar interest versus, core values. Some people get those mixed up. Your core values absolutely should be the same. But yeah, similar interests, no. I think dating somebody who has different interests in you, it is fun to kind of divulge into their passions, know what they know, and see what they're kind of geeking out about. And then to have someone who's interested in what you're interested in, but it's new, and you get to teach them, and you get to kind of share this whole new world with them, and with someone who's intentional. It's a lot of fun. I think it adds so much more to the dating process and to the relationship building process. And having similar interests is nice in some areas, but overall I think it's just great when you have somebody to learn from.
Yeah, it's good. Denise?
I think it is important to have similar interests. If not, then you would definitely have to have an open heart to be teachable.
Yeah.
Because, for example, my husband and I, we both bonded over basketball. We both love playing ball. Heck, that was one of the reasons why we were attracted to one another. So a lot of that, like, obviously we don't, like, our music interests are not all aligned, but for the most part we do have very similar interests, and that's what keeps us glued and bond together. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're willing to be teachable and have an open heart and be like, okay, like, it's not gonna bore me, like, I'm gonna try my best. Yeah. Then yeah, we're all for it. But you have to be honest with yourself, because it's easy to say when you're dating, oh, it's cute. We don't like see eye to eye on this, and he'll teach me, I'll teach him. But at what point does one give in to the other?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's going to happen.
Yeah, so, and you have to be okay with that.
You have to be okay with that.
I remember there was this guy that I went like on one date with, and he was like into theater art, and I thought that I could do it, but then just listening to him about it, and I'm currently in that field at work, where I'm an admin for that. And just getting to know the people and everything, I was like, I would get invites, it's like quite literally.
World, for sure. Yeah. But ultimately, I think it also goes back to personality too, because I think there's people who have different interests than you, but if their personality doesn't really click, someone's a little calmer, someone's a little bit more eccentric, and sometimes that works perfectly. But as you said, you have to be intentional. Right. You have to be honest with yourself. Yeah. Are you willing to do that the rest of your life beyond the it's cute stage? Like for me, I liked being outdoors a lot, but as far as like the hardcore like cowboy camping under the stars thing, not my thing. And then I dated and married somebody who was all about that. And I was like, good for you. But then he wanted to kind of introduce me to that life. And I was like, no, good for you.
That's what I'm saying. Like, at some point, one has to, like, really give in to the other's interests, because how else are you going to make the relationship work? Yeah. Exactly. Because if it's somebody's interest, it's something that they're really, like, in love with. So you either might not love it now, but you're going to have to learn to love it. Because if you're going to love that person, you're going to have to love what they love to do, and that's their interest.
Yeah.
Or even just like my parents are very different. My dad loves working out. My dad likes camping and hiking, and my mom's not about that. Even a little bit. But there's a respect there. They understand that. My dad's not pushing her to be involved in that stuff, and the same thing, my mom's not pushing my dad to be involved in her stuff. So even in that, they have completely different interests, but there's a mutual respect of recognizing that. He's not forcing her. He's not getting hurt. He knew that from the beginning, from the time that they were dating. She's not interested. You know what I mean? And so when they got married, there was that balance of like, you know what? It's cool, I'll do my thing, you do your thing, you know.
But she's okay with him doing that.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. There's that mutual respect of like, we can do these are separate things. But if you're not okay with being separate in your activities, then you're going to want to find somebody who has similar interests. Absolutely. Or be willing to mold into their interest.
Yeah, I remember I was talking with Yesenia's husband one day, and I was telling him about, I forgot, we were talking about something specific. And he was like, well, just so that you know, he's like, it's talked about often that, at least for men, and so I want to get your guys' opinions, but you kind of just spoke to that a little bit. He's like, men need to have that something that they do in order for them to be able to go and have like some sort of like decompressing time.
Like an outlet.
He's like, so, he's like, don't feel threatened by those things. He's like, if anything, it's one of those things that you should like encourage. And that, like, I remember I used to follow this girl. Her husband used to go hunting all the time, so that wasn't her thing. However, she learned to clean the catch. She learned to wash his gear properly. She learned to handle his, like, when he came home, she was there ready to like serve his hobby and his release. And I was like, man, like, that is, I had never thought of that, right? Because when you struggle with like attachment issues, and when you struggle with like insecurities or things like that, like when somebody does something not with you, then you start feeling like there's a disconnect, right? You start feeling like there's like, well, why aren't you here with me? Why didn't you invite me to go? Like blah 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 blah. And so, however, those can be signs of a healthy relationship, right? And so that's why it's so important, and that's even why I go back to like, you know, settling things in your heart, because if you want to have a successful relationship, like you're gonna have to learn to not be triggered by behavior like that.
Absolutely, right? Yeah, I think that's beautiful, because for example, like my husband and I love to work out, and he did at one point too, but with his like work right now, it's hard. But he doesn't feel threatened, or doesn't feel like, oh, she's gonna go work out. On the contrary, he set up a whole environment for me in my garage and bought me a whole thing of workout clothes. So he was supportive. So just because that's not something he's into right now, it doesn't mean that he's not for me. You know, and it goes back to that. He's still serving me in my interest. He doesn't see it as a threat. He sees it as, okay, I can't do that with you, but I'm going to come in however I can, complement side by side with you to make sure that what you're interested in right now is it's being fulfilled the way you want it to be fulfilled. Does that make really sense? Good, so I love that you say that.
And I'm sure that you don't turn around and be like, well, why aren't you working out with me? Like, you're just, you learn. You learn, right? So that was a really good question. Thank you guys for voting for that one. There was somebody that was like, can you ask all of them? And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a jar with like a whole bunch of random questions so we can just pull it out.
That'll be fun.
Right? Because then all of us will be caught off guard. So it'll be good. Okay, so now we're going to get into the topic. And this one was actually chosen by Yesenia, which sucks that she's not here, because I would have loved to hear her insight. So, Caitlin, no pressure. No pressure, girl. So the title of this message is going to be called Reflect, Reprioritize, and Reap Joy. And so in one of our previous episodes, we talked about engaging to have the joy of the Lord. So we want to share and talk about how we can break out of cycles of sadness and grief. And so the first thing that she brought up was, the first step was to reflect. And so what insight do you ladies have when it comes to that?
Gosh, I think everybody grieves different, right? So I don't think there's one perfect answer. I can just, what works for me is definitely reflect. Okay. I have my moment of, why am I feeling this way? Right, it goes back to the book of Ecclesiastes. I've been reading that, and it's there's a time for everything. There's a season. There's this time, to cry. There's a time for joy. There's a time for war. There's a time for peace. So for me, grief. Okay, I allow myself to feel. Right, why am I feeling this way? What's triggering this? Okay, I pray about it. I have my day, and then I purposely put myself in a situation where I'm like, okay, I'm done with it. But it's a conscious decision, right? And a lot of people think that the way you get out of grief is like with time, and it's like, not really. I think there's this beautiful saying, I think you've said it before, Shekinah. It's not necessarily like that time heals all wounds. It's like what you do within that time that heals those wounds. And so for me, for example, one of my outlets is working out. For me, running puts me in a headspace where I can leave my grief. Like, it's very prophetic for me. I'm running, I'm leaving it behind, and I'm going into something new. So that's why I love working out, because for me, that's how, obviously with prayer and sometimes even fasting, worshiping, praising has been like the biggest thing for me in this last season. Is the Lord says that praise is a weapon. So I do that. Like, I purposefully assess myself and allow my stages to go through it, and then I put myself in a situation where I know what's going to help me out of that grief. And like I said, for me, it's those things.
That's really good. That's a reflect, because reflect should always bring answers. It shouldn't like bring you deeper into the cycle, right? I mean, at least if you're going to do it with the right way, with the intention of getting out, of breaking that cycle. Shaquina?
No, I agree. I always give myself a scheduled amount of time. I tell myself, okay, there's been times I'll put on a timer. I'm like, you're getting a good cry for 20 minutes. And I know it sounds crazy, but the reason I started doing that just for me, because I noticed that was more helpful for me. But then after my divorce, and I started reading more books on the topic, they're actually teaching people to do that very thing, because if you get stuck in that place, then that can cause more emotional damage than good. But you need to get it out. And so, definitely you can take, like, I think one of the first or second episode that we did this season, I talked about how I fasted But that was a time of depleting myself physically, emotionally. I was giving myself on every aspect the time to grieve, but there was an end date.
Yeah.
And when that end date reached, I was done. There
Yeah.
was I wasn't allowed. I had to nourish myself physically. It was time to eat. It was time to get up. It was time to wash my face. It was time to move on, And so, I definitely agree with that, is set aside time to grieve, but again, set aside time. Otherwise, you're letting the grief overtake you as opposed to you taking control of the grief.
Yeah. And one of the things that I tell the women that I mentor is, if you don't deal with your grief, you're gonna suppress it.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's going to come out.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll notice that little by little in situations that you're in, that you're going to have outbursts, and you're like, wait, why am I having that? I just had somebody tell me that. They're like, I never grieved properly, so I'm noticing that what you said, as far as like me having these outbursts, like I don't understand why. But then she's like, I reflected. Oh, I have unresolved grief that I'm bringing into this situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't resolve it, and one of the things that the Lord told me is like, there's an end date to death, right? Like we all have an end date. So why don't we put an end date to that grief? Because then we become victims of it.
That's really good. Yeah, that's super good.
That's really good.
I like that. There's an end date to grief.
That's really good. But yeah, I agree with what you guys are all saying for the most part. What I hear, at least in that question or in the topic, is that it's all purposeful.
Yeah.
I've noticed, even I've talked to my Thea about it before, that I've seen kind of both sides of it. One where I'm reflecting and refocusing, and another where I just sat in there and it took me a literal whole year of trying to process everything. And I'm like, I thought that I was setting time to go through it, to heal from it, to learn from it, but really I just took a year and I just molded myself. And then I had a meeting with you once, and you're like, did you like get closer to God in that? Did you take any time to like have a purpose in that? I was like, no. And I was like, and I regret it because it felt like I lost all that time. And then after that, I fixed it. I was like, oh, this is so much better. I was like, because something we learned, we just had a self-deliverance class at our church, and in taking that, it says, don't let the grief or the unforgiveness or anything of that nature stay in you, because it's a poison to your heart.
Yeah.
And something I noticed that was super scary in that was because people are like, oh, you're very kind, bubbly, and I am, thank God. But I noticed in that 1 year that I wasn't purposeful in how I was moving. Like, I felt like death. And I was like, it's not me.
Yeah.
So don't recommend it.
Yeah. Well, that's how we fall into depression, because there's no end in sight. There's just no end in
so
sight.
good.
So why not just give up? But you're right. When there's purpose, there's suddenly a light, and there's something. There's a goal. There's something you can tread towards.
Yeah.
And as I hear you speaking, sorry, I see a cycle. I was doing homework with my daughter, and it showed the cycle of like a chick, right? Like the egg, and then it hatches, and then it becomes a baby, then it's like a hen, and then it's the same cycle. And I'm saying that because just because you're done with the grief now, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen again with something else, right? So I never want to make it seem like it's a one-time done, like we're never going to grieve in our lives again, because that's not the case.
It's
it's a cycle, right? But it's important to end that cycle so you can start fresh with something new, with like a new perspective.
I agree. So this season is honestly for sure challenging me because as I mentioned before, like I'm not naturally inclined to this kind of thing, right? Like I thought, I'm telling you guys, this past like year or like I experienced myself like I've never experienced myself before. I was like, who am I? Like
she cleans the mirror.
Yeah. And I was like, Lord have mercy. I didn't know all these things were like, I thought I had dealt with them. And so when they started coming up to the surface, I was like, yikes, I don't like what I'm seeing. And so right now, I'm really working on like boundaries, right? And so and the boundaries really start with yourself, and which that really means self-discipline. Boundaries are self-discipline. And so just recently, it's funny that you said the cycles, because I was going through and again, there's a time for everything, as you were saying. And so I think, going through that stuff, it definitely taught me a lot of things. But so I had to reflect, right? And I remember just like a couple days ago, I was like, man, like I need to just start doing like yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden I woke up and I'm like, well, today you can choose to break the cycle. And I think we overanalyze it. But yeah, in the reflection, I realized that it really is a simple step in order to come out of that like downward spiral, you know?
Yeah.
So with that, kind of just jumping into the next one, which is reprioritize. So that is figuring out what your goals are and where you're trying to go, right? And what you're trying to accomplish, what you want the breakthrough to look like, and then work like reverse engineer, like how are you going to get there? And so what are some good ways or some good things, like some good goals that you guys think that people can use or amount to or strive for in order to successfully reprioritize for a breakthrough?
It looks different for everybody, I think. I think just start with something realistic, right? But it could be small, you know. And I know it sounds silly, but I'm going to learn something. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm going to learn an instrument. But again, be realistic. Don't just write it down and then go, that's cool, and then walk away from it. You know, write something realistic. Write something that God is putting on your heart or you just feel a prompting to. And then if there's any kind of correction that the Lord or maybe some of your peers might be presenting to you, hey, you probably feel this way because you're doing X, Y, Z.
That's
you
good.
know?
Yeah.
So take note of those and really take those into consideration. Is this something I should work on? For me, when I went through a season of severe burnout. I mean, just severe burnout. I was near death's door, and I don't say that lightly. And the correction that the Lord brought to me in that season was take a Sabbath. And so we'll talk about that in the next episode more, but it's going to look different for every single person. You might be feeling depressed. You might be feeling that grieving stage. And the way that you get pulled out of that is going to look a little different for each person. But just ask people, what do you think would help me? What do you think, you know, some people need to work out. Some people need to eat healthier. Some people just need to worship. Some people just need to learn how to go to God for everything first. But I think it's going to look a little different. But I think universally, I just said that, universally going to God and learning to pray and learning to worship and just submit yourself to the Father. That's universal for anybody.
Yeah. I love that you said that. So I want to tag on to that. One of the things that I started doing this last season, and I've recommended to a few of my friends, and I've gotten honestly great feedback, is I go outside in the morning before I do anything else. I walk outside. I literally just stand there in my backyard for about 5 minutes, and I look at the direction towards the sun, and I just start thanking Jesus, thanking God for my day, for my life. I start blessing, and then when I'm done, I literally just stand there and just hear. I just hear like nature around me, and it's literally like a 5-minute exercise, and I can honestly tell you that has changed my life. My attitude towards my children, my attitude towards life, my attitude towards my enemies, the attitude towards people that might be cursing me. Like, I literally bless. That's the first thing I do every morning outside is I bless and I bless and I bless. And it literally has just transformed my whole mindset. And it allows me to have that time with God. And it just allows me to have the right mindset throughout the day.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I know that when I was walking through that too, when I first moved, the Lord just said, go stand outside. Go stand outside. I literally I set my alarm like 10 minutes. That was it, just 10 minutes before I would normally wake up, and I would stand outside. I would breathe in that fresh, crisp morning air for like 5 minutes. Yeah, and then that's it. But yeah, that's really helpful.
It is. I agree 100%.
I think especially like agreeing with both you guys are saying is just hearing from God. First of all, going to God, because I had a problem. I would run to you, I'd run to leadership, I'd run to everybody, and then God's like, I'm right here. I have the answer. I have the wisdom and the tool for you. And something I noticed is that God is always speaking. So like when you're trying to refocus, what was the word that you used in the notes?
Oh, reprioritize.
Reprioritize. A lot of things, I've noticed it especially at work, and thank God, because a lot of the things, like God, with me personally, God's already telling me, and it's already in my mind. And so I'll start working on it, I'll bring it to my boss. I was like, I don't know how to fix it. She's like, you just gave the answer to it. You just said it. And I'm like, did I? And I was like, okay, thank you, God, that you're already speaking to me, and that it's like, okay, coming firstly to hear you, God, and then listening to you, God. We taught on this actually in Camp Click today. It was thank God for this, was that there's one thing when you hear God and his answer and his focus for you, awesome. Now I have to listen and put an action to that. It's like, I can hear you, but am I going to listen to you?
Oof, that's good.
That is really good. Dropping bars. Yeah, so with that,
you don't have anything to share, Melissa?
I really don't. I don't. So you guys are bringing the hot fire.
Good job, Kat.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so and now the reaping of the joy. So I think one thing that we would like to emphasize that we've always said from day one is it's not going to be easy. You have to stand, and you have to stand, and you have to stand. Just, in leading intercession at church, sometimes I show up and I'm not in the mood. I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I practice. I'm putting to practice what we're talking about, and so I just start proclaiming the goodness of the Lord. I just start remembering who God is and know it apart from me, right? Because oftentimes we're like, oh, this is, I think we put ourselves too much in there. And I feel like just recently the Lord started speaking to me about how we're made in his image and he's not made in our image. And I think oftentimes we try to create God to be this person according to our emotions and our reactions and according to the way that we're wired. And so coming back to what Caitlin was saying about like going to God first, and I know all of you have been saying it, is going to God first. That really brings you in like that priority of what's important in your life, right? Now you understand like, I know Denise was saying this in the second season. I know I was saying in the first season how we're talking about how life is like so fragile and it comes and goes. And so the moment that we look to the one, like there's this scripture that I've been holding on to for a few months now, how God is the lifter of my head. And so, I'm getting emotional just thinking about that. But it's like, when there's so much shame and there's so much like whatever, or just disappointment or hurt or anger, or whatever the case may be, I love that the word says that God is a lifter of our head. And if we look up to the mountains, that's where our help comes from, right? And so by reprioritizing, we get to first put the right alignment in. And so I love that. I love that you take the time to do that. I love because we have this tendency to kind of just wake up in like the chaos, right, of our minds.
And I just want to say something. For someone like me, if you're wired like me, where you're a very emotional person, I need you guys to understand that joy is not a feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Joy is a choice. And you have to purposely make a conscious decision every day to choose to be joyful. And one of the things that I've noticed is when we're hitting joy strong is that all hell is going to come against you.
Yes.
All opposition is going to come against you. I mean, just this morning, my daughter was throwing up at 4:30 in the morning. And it's like I could easily have an attitude of I'm exhausted, I'm tired. But I'm like, no, before I came here, I was like, no, Lord, I choose to be joyful. What a joy is it to be doing your work. And so that takes discipline.
Yes.
That's not for the weak. And that's one thing that gives me strength, is knowing that choosing to be joyful is not for the weak, that it's something that you have to purposely work on and choose to do, because if it was for everybody, then everybody would be joyful, right?
Exactly.
And it's not in your own flesh, but it's in the Spirit of the Lord that you're able to be joyful. And what does that look like? Start proclaiming the good things, like we were talking about, rewiring your brain. What is it that you're joyful? And if you're not, one of the things that I think is important to do is when you're feeling like good, write down what you're thankful for, because you can, when you're not feeling it, you can go back to that note and say,
That's
you know
good.
what? I'm joyful because of this. I'm joyful because of that. And this is something that I even have my daughter Raziella doing. She was saying she was afraid. And I'm like, no, I need you to start saying, I'm brave, I'm strong, Jesus is with me. And just the other day, I caught her. She's 4. So
I'm gonna cry.
If a 4, and I'm saying this because if a 4-year-old can do it, us as adults can do it. I was in the shower, and all I hear is, I'm brave, I'm strong, Jesus is with me. And she said it 4 times. And I look, and she's looking at herself in the mirror, in the bathroom, and she's saying, I'm brave, I'm strong, and Jesus is with me. So if you're not feeling joyful, go into the mirror and say, I'm joyful. I'm joyful. I'm joyful. You know, I'm thankful for this day. I'm joyful for the Lord. I'm joyful for the blessings that He's put in my life. I'm joyful for my children. I'm joyful for waking up this day. I'm joyful for the roof over my head. Like the simple things, if you can proclaim that and declare and decree that over your life, then you're going to start rewiring your brain to understand that joy is not a feeling, it is a decision.
Yes, that is so good. To me, that's amazing, right? Because these words are transformative, right? We see it in, like you said, we see it in a 4-year-old that is exercising self-discipline. How much more do we need to do at knowing fully aware, like being fully aware of how much our idle thoughts, our idle words, and our idle emotions affect us and affect those around us. And so I don't think it's fair that other people have to pay the repercussions of our lack of self-discipline. You know, and I think as the word says, love, there is no greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for a friend. And so laying down your life for a friend is disciplining yourself, living for other people, right? Being able to take care of yourself so that you don't spew out anger against other people. And so the joy of the Lord is not just, it starts with you, as Denise was saying. It does start with you, and you definitely need to practice that, and you need to discipline yourself in it. I'm reminded of Jeremiah, where it says the joy of the Lord is their strength. And what's crazy about that, I'm sure you guys know, but what's crazy when that scripture comes out, so many people reference that scripture. But when Nehemiah told the people, the joy of the Lord is your strength, they were crying. They were weeping. They were in such sadness, because I think it's because the word of the Lord had not been restored or something along those lines. And so, or they had turned their back on God, something along those lines. They had sinned. But then Nehemiah was like, no, go to your houses, feast, rejoice in the Lord. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And so they were in the midst of wailing, of weeping, of grieving. And sometimes we think like, no, I have to feel it, like you were saying, or no, like I have to hear the specific word. It's like, if you want to increase in your ability to hear God, you first have to honor the written word, because that's what God has already said. Like, he's not gonna at least I don't think, correct me ladies if I'm wrong, but God, in order for him to trust you with his voice, he has to trust you with the written word, because he's always going to build on that. And so and so a lot of people want to hear God's voice, but they don't read the word. And to me, it's like, that's scary. That's when you start listening to demons.
It goes back to what I said. It's in the opposition, right?
Yes.
Like if you pray for patience, what's going to happen? You're going to be tested.
That's right.
If you're praying or you're declaring joy, everything in hell's world is going to come against you to be not joyful. But that's where it's kind of like Nehemiah. It's when you're choosing. It's a choice. I keep saying joy is a choice. That's it. Joy is a choice. And just make that choice.
That's it.
And something like I've been hearing lately, and I've even brought it up to you, is a word that God gave me. He says, you get to choose me. It's something, because I would be I'm like, oh, like I serve in this ministry, I get to do this, I get to do that. And I'm like, it's becoming like a system, it's a routine, it's something that, and I'm like, oh, I have to do this. And then God's like, no, you get to choose this. You get to. You don't have to.
Okay. Did you fall on your face and cry? Because I
I did. I think you're right.
Forgive me.
Again, we're made in his image. He's not made in our image. Anything that you would like to close us off with, Shaquina?
Oh gosh, I'm just soaking it all in, because I swear everything that is being discussed even now, and like the Lord has been teaching me to change my vocabulary and the get to and just remembering that at the beginning of this year in January, I was like, I always try to get a word from the Lord and of what this year is going to be, you know, and it's always been spot on. It's always been right. This year he said peace, and then he said this is going to be the year of peace, and I was like, yes, peace. We're going to chill. Exactly. But, I was breaking out my ukulele, like
the campfire song.
I was so ready, and then just all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose, and through the whole process, though, I kept declaring peace. I kept feeling it.
That's what I was gonna say.
I kept aligning myself with it, and the people who were causing so many problems in my life were like, I just feel like there's just so much warfare and darkness, and there's just this muddied stuff, and I was just like, I don't. Honestly, I didn't, and I didn't mean it in like an arrogant, prideful, I'm better than you kind of thing. I just genuinely was pushing through with the promise that God declared.
So good.
This is the year of peace, and I held on to that. And through the whole process, I just felt this supernatural peace. And we've had so much loss this year, so much, and even through it, still God was just like, "But I'm here, and my word is not void. I've declared peace. Step into that." And so there are times that I start to feel like anxious, and the Lord really corrected me on that. I went to to get a massage professionally, because I was so tight, and I was like, "That's it. This is going in my budget. I'm going every month." And the Lord corrected me on that. I'm not saying don't go get a massage, but the Lord corrected me, and He goes, "Excuse me, when did you come to me for this? Because you know this is coming from anxiety. I've declared peace. Why aren't you stepping into that peace? Why are you going to get a massage?" And Yeah.
Self-care.
Yeah. I was like,
Did you fall on your face and repent?
yeah, I did. I canceled my next appointment is what I did. And I did. I prayed over myself. I grabbed my
That's really
neck
good.
and it released. And I just
Awesome.
started, and ever since then, like now when I start to feel that anxiety rise, when I start to feel that,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, God, you said peace, and I'm stepping into that. And so, pretty much everything you guys have been saying has just been the Lord just been like reminding me that my word is not void. Just because everyone else is doing their crazy stuff doesn't
Right.
mean my word is void.
Yeah.
Yes, and one thing. Oh, sorry, no, you wanted to add on to that. Go for it.
Oh, I was just gonna say when I now I know when I hear words like that, like peace, I always think to myself, peace from what?
Right.
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
Patient
Yeah.
from what?
That's good.
Because it's like people, we get these words. It's like I know I assess everything.
When
I'm
people
very
want a
analytical.
word
Yeah.
from the Lord
Yeah.
and they're so eager for it, I'm just like, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. And even if it is rainbows and
Yeah.
butterflies, if God's telling you you're going to be a millionaire this year, you're going to have this kind of car, you're going to be blessed, you got to understand that comes with a job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's something that I've been like digesting. It's like, oh, God is increasing, blah 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 blah, and I'm like,
Aw.
but this is a lot of work. I'm like, can you increase? Oh wait, whatever.
Joy of the Lord, joy of the Lord, joy of the Lord, joy of the Lord.
One thing that
Thank you,
I
Jesus.
yes, hallelujah, that I want to leave you guys with, just because I think it's so important. When the breakthrough comes, you have to fight to stay
Yes.
in the breakthrough.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that there's these familiar things that are going to try to rise up once again, and you're going to be like, oh, I remember that emotion, I remember that thought,
Yep.
I remember this, or somebody's going to be like, hey, like somebody's going to try to like talk to you about that situation again, right? And it's like, you know what, like I get it.
Yeah.
But I've moved on, right?
Yeah.
And so because it's like some people just like to stay in it, and it's just like, you know what, like it's time for us to move forward,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to fight for your breakthrough. And sometimes it's for other people that are not ready or that are not in that place, I'm not saying to like write them off, right? Because iron sharpens iron, and so you have to be that you have the opportunity to talk to your friend. But you have to stay in the fight. I remember just like on Friday, I got home and I was like already wanting to like spiral. And so I texted my friend who had just shared a testimony that she had breakthrough on something. So I texted her and I was like, hey, like I'm feeling like this, like this, like this. So instead of falling into that, I want to share with you why I'm so grateful today. And so I was able to share with her, and she was able to give me like just some scriptures, and it broke. I went to sleep peacefully.
Nice.
And that's the kind of thing that you have to do, right? Phone a friend, humble yourself to know when you can't do it by yourself. But also make sure that you fight to stay in your breakthrough.
Yes.
Do not give back in to the things that you used to know. As the word says, behold, I am doing a new thing. Can you not perceive it? So stay in the breakthrough, stay in the joy, stay in the precision, and you fight. You fight because you're worth it. You fight because God is good and His mercy endures forever. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so grateful for you. We're so grateful for your feedback. Man, so many people have reached out to us either individually or together and just told us how they needed
Yes.
this. So I'm so glad that I listened to these girls, because it really has been a blessing. So make sure you sign up for the June event. Look for us on In the Vine.
June 8th.
June 8th. Make sure you sign up at, what's our website?
Sign up at inthevine.org.
inthevine.org. And you can find us on Instagram at inthevine.connects, and we'll be more than happy to connect with you guys. We're really funny. Honestly, we're so funny. So make sure you join us, okay? Bye, everybody. Pray for your single friends and your married friends
Yes. All of us.
and your Delulu friends. Nice.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode or we answered any of your questions, or you have a question that you would like to be discussed in future episodes, let us know in the comments or share on social media. And be sure to hit subscribe so you won't miss out on the amazing content and guests we have lined up for you. Shalom and God bless.